What's up, Amazon sellers? Today, I'm super excited to introduce you to someone who I've actually randomly met in the Philippines, as you do, but also as well follows after something that I've been doing for a long time, selling on Amazon, doing OA, but also as well have virtual assistants. This is Carter from the Selling Fast Lane. And like I said, I met him randomly in the Philippines, which was a really unique story. So I'll tell you more about that and his journey coming up. Right, today I'm super excited to bring you, an interview with Carter, someone I met in the Philippines. Literally, he contacted me out of the blue and then we just had dinner, and obviously I met his team as well. If anyone hasn't met you and don't know who you are, can you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are at the moment?
Yeah, for sure, Tom. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on the show. Super grateful to be here and excited to, share what I've learned along the way. So my name is Carter. I am 22 years old. I've been in the e-commerce space for a good while now. I started eBay at the age of 12. I've been an Amazon seller for about 6 years. At the moment, I do the business model online arbitrage. We're doing anywhere from around $50,000 to $55,000 a month in the last rolling 30 days. I personally have a team of 2 full-time virtual assistants who work for just my Amazon business, specifically product research, tracking, all that cool stuff. And then I have a service-based business, the Selling Fast Lane. We provide a couple different services leads for other Amazon sellers, and I have a team of 8 over there.
I find it really funny, my God, you're 22 and I love this, it's crazy. And I started when I was 12. I was like, what? Who starts when they're 12? Who does that? Why did you get started at 12, may I ask? How did that come around?
That's a great question. I would say I was a bit of an oddball. When I was really young, you kind of go through, you want this new pair of shoes and your parents are like, we're not buying you that. You got to buy it yourself. And so, hey, here's me, 12-year-old Carter. I think it's probably 6th or 7th grade. I'm trying to learn how I can make some extra money. And I literally Google how to make money as a teen. And it's walking dogs, mowing your neighbor's lawn, just some of the basic little tasks. But one of them was start selling on eBay. I didn't really know what eBay was. I never bought anything. And so I just thought I'd give it a shot at a coin that my aunt had gifted me. I didn't tell her until years later that I sold it. But basically, I put that item up on eBay for 99 cents on a 7-day auction, and it sold for $25. And it was just the coolest experience. I had this electronic money in my PayPal account. It was just the weirdest experience. And, as time goes, I sold more items and tried to figure out how to grow and scale the business, made mistakes, learned from them, and it's got me to where I am today.
My God. I was like, can you even get a PayPal account when you're 12?
Not legally. I had to do a little bit of lying there, but we got it to work.
I won't lie. When I was younger, I managed to get a Visa debit card in the UK. And because you couldn't get them until you're 18 normally, that kind of allowed me to get stuff. So I was buying BB guns at age 15 or 15, 16. But, through mail order because the card was okay.
You just got to find a way around it.
Exactly. And I think that's who we are. We find ways around, don't we? We don't kind of accept yes, that's fine. So question for you, obviously you did eBay. What was that journey before Amazon? Tell me about that. Was it flipping? What were you doing?
Yeah, so I'd say for most entrepreneurs, you're just trying a bunch of different businesses, Tom. I'm sure you've been through the same thing. I've heard some stories about the different businesses you've started. I was just trying to figure out what worked best for me. Before the eBay selling, I was selling candy at school. I was, selling stuff on eBay. I was selling stuff locally, on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, started a phone case business. I think before the age of 18, I had started 15 different businesses, and obviously not everyone succeeded, but along the way, I figured out, okay, this business has been the most profitable for me. I think I can make the most money for it. And so I just kept chugging along there.
Wow, I love it. And so what age did you start Amazon? You said you've been in 5 years now? Is that right? 6 years?
About just approaching 7 years. So over 6 years, age 16, I started on Amazon. I just started selling used books, CDs, and video games, and some electronics, just going to stuff like thrift stores. And first off, the space. And Tom, how long have you been selling Amazon for, Tom?
About 5. I'd say 6. Time creeps, doesn't it?
Yeah, so 5-6 years ago, the landscape of Amazon was so much different. As of today, 2023, there's so much more content out there. There's people that are now teaching people, training. 5-6 years ago, there were just basic videos. There was no such thing as online arbitrage. It was just, reselling, maybe a little retail arbitrage. And those are just kind of the models I was using back then.
Yeah, crazy. So you started 7 years ago, I think it was, you were saying, age 16. Where are you now? What are you doing now? Is it still thrift stores? Obviously, you've got VAs. I'm guessing you're not doing thrift stores with VAs. What kind of products are you selling now? Is it OA still, or are you doing wholesale, for example?
Yeah, so I'm 100% online arbitrage right now. However, when I first started, I'll kind of just run you through that 6-year period. Was doing reselling, so used books, electronics, video games. Transitioned into private label, which actually I had a couple products that did really well, a couple products that failed, and then I found retail arbitrage, which the money was a little more consistent. It didn't require a lot more startup capital, so I focused on retail arbitrage, and I did that right around COVID, and for like a year or two after, and that's where I made some of the craziest money ever. That's how I started the Selling Fastlane Discord, is I was selling patio heaters, pools, and I was like, you know what, let me just post these products, and all of a sudden, like, I live in Texas, there's someone in California or Florida, and they're able to go to Home Depot and buy that same product, and they were selling so quickly I wasn't worried about competition, and so I just absolutely milked as much money as I could make from retail arbitrage. And then you run into the situation, like, there's a lot of time that goes into driving to the stores. Not every store might have the item in stock. And so as I started to learn more about online arbitrage and put more time and spend more money on inventory, the business model just looked a little more scalable. I was able to start outsourcing my prep to a prep center. I then hired some virtual assistants to start doing some more lower ROI tasks, stuff that was just taking up a lot of time and not generating a lot of money for the business. And it's the model that I'm working on right now and looking to continue to scale.
Private label, I'm interested in that. As entrepreneurs, we always have shiny object syndrome. We're always like, wow, what else could it be? And private label is one of the things that a lot of OA sellers say they're going to do. OA wholesale private label, for example. Tell me about that. Why did you get out of it, should we say? What was the problem with it? Because you said you had some successful products.
Yeah, so my first 2 or 3 products were flops. I remember, like I said, there wasn't any like trainings out there. Like, it was just, there was no online arbitrage videos. It was like, hey, here's private label, launch your own product, your own brand. I did that. I launched like a phone case, failed. I launched like a kitchen utensil, failed. And then I had like a sleeping apparatus kind of product. And that was my first one to really pick up. When it comes to private label, like, I'm definitely no expert, but I did have a lot of experience, money invested. There's just a higher barrier to entry. So you don't see many beginner sellers really entering that market. I mean, if they are, they have more capital at their expense. You're basically, you're buying let's say 10 of this phone case, you're putting your brand on it. So you're contacting, suppliers overseas, and most of the time it was in China, getting those products over here, quality control. You're having to create your own listing. You're having to drive traffic to that listing. And so it just takes a lot more time, money involved in really getting a product up and running, which can be super beneficial long-term. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can be out of money pretty quick.
But you said you had some successful products. Why did you get out? Are you still doing it now? Do you still have the successful products?
So I do not have that one. Unfortunately, so really, I think the main thing was just obviously more sellers came onto the market, but I had a really difficult time with quality control on my best-selling product. It was a lightweight product, and it was a little bit difficult to use, and so I started racking up a lot of negative reviews on the listing, and I think that really started to kind of shoo people off to the side. And then also, I had been generating more money, more consistent profitable income from retail arbitrage, and so as I started putting more time into that, my product started to slip, and I just kind of slowly phased out of it.
Question, would you go back into private label again?
I think yes. I think there's definitely a huge market. New products are being added all the time. I feel like I already have a pretty good foundation and maybe a little more capital now as I did 3 or 4 years ago. So I think if I was to enter in there, I'd be a lot more comfortable.
Can I ask you the question, can you define, a lot of sellers right now are OA, wholesale, for example, thinking about private label. Like, what would be your metrics of success to say I'm now ready? You talked about capital, time, maybe it's ideas. Like, what would be the measurables that you would say, that's when I would say that I'm ready?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would say obviously capital would be one. Like, some people have, maybe $300 to $500 and they're looking to start making money on Amazon. Private label probably isn't the best option at that moment. Once you start getting to that $1,500, $2,000 range, I feel like that's a lot of money that you can start investing in a single product. And I think the second thing would just be experience, just kind of knowing how the Amazon platform works, how FBA works. There's a lot of little loopholes, a lot of things that you can kind of implement on the private label side, which could be super more beneficial. But I would just say experience is one thing.
You've got more than $2,000 in your bank account right now. like I would put a lot of money on that. I'd be very worried if you didn't. By that measure of what you just said, you've got the metrics to now go into private label.
Right.
Let's not talk about other people. Let's talk about you. Like,
okay,
what number are you looking at? And maybe it's like, hey, I still want to keep doing my OA for the moment, and maybe in a year's time I'll look at it. And when I get to the year's time, here's how much money I want to invest into that product. Can you tell me that?
How much money I want to invest? So I would say like 1,500. It also depends on like the kind of like the lightweight, the low cost items are obviously just naturally going to have more competition, because when you're ordering for private label, the more units that you order, often the lower price you can get. So when you're competing with an item that has a buy cost of, maybe $5 to $7, someone with $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 is also going to be able to compete on that product. So if I was to enter, I would probably want to be a little more strategic. Maybe I can find something that's not everyone is wanting to go after. Maybe it's an oversized item, or maybe it's a little bit of a slower seller but a higher profit per unit. I would probably I wouldn't try to go after like the top dog products that sellers out there with hundreds of thousands of dollars at their disposal are going after. One thing I did want to mention, Tom, about why I kind of prefer online arbitrage at the moment is I'm able to spread my capital, my risk across a bunch of different products. With private label, you're essentially taking a large sum of capital and you're putting it all into one product, which could go really, really great. Or, if you don't launch it correctly, run great paid advertising, it could go just the opposite way. So I would say just risk management, comparing online arbitrage to private label, is why I'm kind of leaning towards online arbitrage at the moment.
It's interesting because when I think about private label, yeah, of course, you can start with a couple $100, maybe a couple of thousand, fine. But the people I talk to who are kind of like sold, they're kind of like, you need at least $10,000, probably $20,000, because the big part we don't talk about is the ad spend, which is driving traffic. You can get a product there for 5,000, for example, fine. But if you struggle to get the traffic, it's just dead product, really. It's a real challenge. Obviously, there are products you can do without that, of course, but like they're the unicorns, should we say, rather than like the majority of products you can go after. And again, like that higher capital barrier causes a barrier to entry, which means other people can't really enter against you, or makes it more competitive.
Exactly.
Private label aside, let's come back to OA. So how long have you been doing OA for?
Yes, I think, at least approaching like a year and a half or so.
Okay.
I started right as the retail arbitrage started to get a little more difficult. My local sources started drying up. There weren't any big home run products. About a year and a half, I'd say.
And obviously now you've got VAs, haven't you? You've got 2 VAs within your own Amazon business. Tell me about that. Like, why did you hire VAs? Like, come on, man. Like they're somewhere else. Like, they can't do a good job as you. They're lazy. Like, they can't do it. Like, why did you, like, you can do this. You can make the money yourself. Why not do it yourself?
So virtual assistants have been just a game changer for my business. Every entrepreneur, the biggest thing is your time. Every single day, like, I've got other businesses, I've got hobbies, I can't be spending all this time on what I consider, lower ROI tasks, like, managing your account health, checking emails, making sure everything's smooth flowing. My virtual assistants have been huge. So I'll just kind of give you the rundown of my 2 right now, everything I kind of have them doing for maybe those of you that are watching this video, and maybe you want to hire your first virtual assistant. If you need one, you should definitely contact this guy right here. But basically, I had used virtual assistants in the past. It could have been for video editing, t-shirt designs, whatever. So I have experience with them. For Amazon, the first thing that I felt like to take my business to the next level, like I just needed access to more products that I could buy. And so my one of my virtual assistants is just a full-time product researcher. They're going after categories, brands that my account like to sell. And then she'll basically send those to my main VA. And so he reviews hers leads, make sure, all the products are, matching, the numbers line up, you're reviewing the Keepa charts, making sure there's no potential IP issues. And now I've trained that main VA to be my purchaser. One thing that, Tom, when we met in January, you said, hey, you got to turn him into a purchaser so it can obviously, free up more time. And so we started working, okay, based off of, the average monthly sales and, the amount of competitor sellers on the listing. I'm now comfortable with him deciding what quantity to purchase. So he's doing all my purchasing. He's also finding leads himself. Then he's also doing like a lot of the back end tracking, like tracking our spend, our spend per VA, how many leads each VA purchase. Like that's a metric that, we definitely like to track.
I love it. I'm just making a note, leads per VA. Absolutely love it. So your operation right now is one sourcer and basically one purchaser. Is that right?
Correct. Purchaser slash sourcer.
Were they the first people that you hired, or did you kind of have some bad run-ins with VAs? Because it sounds like it's gone really well, or was that not the case?
Yeah, so of course, social media is always going to show you, where they are right now, but no, those were not the first VAs I hired, and those were probably not the first 5. So I run a service-based business where, I have virtual assistants that supply leads to our clients, and I had no VAs on my end. And basically I had, 5 to 6 at the time, but there's always one that stands out. Maybe they're just in better communication with you. Maybe the leads that they're finding are, more profitable, higher quality. I just kind of found one that my main VA that was doing really well. He just seemed to be outperforming everyone, and I kind of presented him the opportunity. Now, if you are looking to hire your first virtual assistant, I think definitely need to watch some of Tom's videos. I have some videos on my channel as well. The process of hiring a virtual assistant, I think, is super, super important, because if you put a job post out right now, 2023, hey, I need a virtual assistant for my Amazon business product research, you're going to have over 100 people reach out. Now, you need to make sure that you're able to basically move through those potential virtual assistants and see which ones have experience, what they did in the past. You're trying to sort out the not very good VAs, and so that you can focus on the ones that you want to potentially bring on. Like, usually if I want to bring on one VA to my team, I'll send out a sample project. Based off that sample project, I'll take the best, maybe 6 to 8. We'll get them on a Zoom call, and then I'll usually hire 2 or 3 on like a 1 to 2 week paid trial, and just see which one performs the best. Whichever one performs the best, we sign them full time.
Fantastic. So just run me through that. So that filtering process, because you said you had 5 bad
filtering.
VAs.
That's the word I was looking for.
That's right. So when you say you had 5 bad VAs, did you run 5 through that filtering process, or was it the fact that I ran like 10 through the filtering process and I got those 5 out which weren't actually that good? What does that mean?
Yeah, so like you said, filtering. I mean, basically I have like a sample project, and based off that sample project, maybe like, hey, provide me 1 or 2 profitable leads with this criteria, or maybe I provide them 3 leads, 2 of them are good, 1 of them are bad, and maybe I just ask for, what is your feedback on these leads? Should I buy it? How many units? You just want to gather experience. And then the Zoom call is obviously super important. I look for people that are personally pretty like energetic. I've brought people into my company that maybe are good at finding leads, but they're almost like energy vampires for the company. Like we'll have a company call on Monday, and they're just on the screen like this. They're not very energetic, and that can really kill the company culture, the company vibe, the company energy. And we've had people that are maybe decent, good at finding leads, but they're awful at communicating. If they provide a bad lead and our reviewer provides them feedback, they're not responding. So over time, you're going to figure out who those higher quality participants are.
I know it because some people are like, oh, it's okay, they're only here to find leads, they don't need to communicate. And I'm like, right. No, but like,
it's
when you're in an office, you communicate naturally. When you're at home, working from home, communication is something you have to proactively do.
Yep.
And if you if you don't have people who try and do it, you basically just get it where you send like one message and you get a reply the next day, and it's like one message a day. It's like, oh my god, like we make a point where it's like you've got to be checking your messages every hour. So like, and then we have a little chit chat, like we're a bit back and forth. Yeah, I really understand. My god. So if anyone's looking to hire a VA, and obviously I appreciate that, I do a service, but we're not here to promote my service. Like you talked about like kind of doing like the test. Are there any kind of like hacks, tips and tricks that you'd recommend for people who are looking at like maybe looking for their own VA, things that you've done in the past, or maybe you've learned from other people?
Yeah, tricks with like hiring?
Yeah. And like, where do you go? Oh. Where do you hire your VAs from?
Okay, yeah, so I'll give you the quick little rundown. I'm pretty sure, Tom, I learned from some of your videos and some other Amazon sellers as well, but I use Online Jobs PH. That's just been the site that has worked best for me. I know there's some others out there. Step number 1 is you need to create your job post for $69. I believe you get like a monthly subscription, so pay that $69, put your job post up, and then usually after a week or 2, you'll be able to make your hires. Then you can cancel that $69 charge. Then you want to create like just a great job post. You're going to put in, potentially what you're going to pay US wise, like monthly. And I see for most people that come to me and most Amazon sellers I've talked to, they pay anywhere from maybe, I guess that also depends, part-time, full-time, anywhere from maybe like $400 to $600 per month, low end to high end, I'd say. And then also one thing that I'm working on and actively trying to learn about is, should you pay your VA per lead found, or should you pay them hourly, or should you pay them basically a set monthly rate, not depending on the amount of leads. So I'm actively testing essentially all three of those to see what works best for me. And I do believe they could all three work. Tom, I'm kind of curious on maybe your thoughts on that.
I'll give you my thoughts, but let me ask you what your thoughts are first.
Thoughts
are
first.
What are you seeing
okay.
And why that?
The reason it's such a difficult conversation to have is like, okay, let's say you pay per lead. You pay, $500 a month. I want 10 profitable leads per day. What if they just give you like 10 okay leads, but then there's another VA who maybe gives you 6 to 7 awesome leads, but the spend is different. The 10 leads they provide you here, let's say the amount you spend, let's say is $1,000. But the VA down here who sent you only 6 or 7 leads, but you spent $2,000 there. Now it's like, okay, if I'm paying per lead, are they going to be as high quality leads? Am I going to make more money for it? So I'm trying to find like a good middle ground for those.
It's good. It's a really good question. So what you're doing is you're going to, so my thoughts on it are that you're starting to understand that one lead isn't equal to another lead. Leads have different value. If a supplier can only buy 3 with 1 lead, then it's not very good.
Exactly.
If a supplier can buy 1,000, then you're like, I'll buy it. Like, I'll go crazy. So there's a much better deal. The reason why I understand that is because you're looking at the spend metric, and the spend metric is helping you understand, generally, the more you spend, the more profit you make. But if you just take it right to the nth degree, not spend, not gross profit, but actual not estimated gross profit, but actual gross profit sale. Right. That's how we do it. So, and what do I mean by that? So if I give you an example, let's say, for example, you've got 2 VAs. VA1 and VA2 both give you 10 deals, and both VA1 and both VA2 you can buy 10 of each. So they're exact, and by the way, they both cost $10. So they're exactly the same. But if I were to say VA1 found them by doing manual sourcing, going through like, some really weird suppliers, fine. And then the other one did it through storefront stalking. Which ones do you think would generate more profit?
Probably the storefront stalking.
I would probably say the opposite. I'd probably say storefront stalking wouldn't, because you have more competition. So
that is true.
Just because of the very nature of how the leads are sourced, i.e. they come from by the way, if you had like 10 leads where the new seller count on all those leads was 3 to 5 and the other one was 50 to 100, you probably think the buy box would crash on that one much more likely. So what you start to really understand is there are a lot of variables in it. So at the end of the day, how do you just really define the variables? Like, how do you drill it all down? You define it as actually gross profit cash generated. Right. And once the cash is generated, we then use that number and then give them a percentage of it. So that's fine. And the reason why we do that is because also as well, when you do things like pay per deal, what you're actually doing is you're teaching them the value of the lead, but you're teaching them the value of the lead before you've sold it. So what they can go is wow, Sir is giving me $1 for each lead. Fantastic. I wonder if there's someone else who'll pay me $1, because I can just Control C, Control V. And that's where you start saying, like, that's when your VA starts sharing. Whereas if you start telling them now it's only a sale, and they realize that if you share the lead, someone else is going to compete and we're going to see the price crash and they won't get the bonus, that's a lot more aligned. So I'm just a really big believer in like aligning incentives. And by the way, there's no perfect incentives. There's nothing perfect. Right. But a really good book, if you ever want to read it, is Freakonomics. It shows you the power of like behavioral economics and how incentives cause a lot of problems. Absolutely love it. Something else you talked about in VA is part-time, full-time. What are your thoughts on that? Should you buy part-time? Should you buy full-time? What are your thoughts? How often do you pay them? And like, how do you pay them? Do you like send them a check in the mail? So obviously I met you randomly in the Philippines.
Yes.
What were you doing in the Philippines, may I ask? What are some horror stories that you've had? Like, what are some of the bad experiences behind the VAs? Tell me about how you build a good team. What some tips, tricks, and hacks that people can like take away and smash it out there? How does it work? So you talked about kind of like company culture. Is there anything that maybe you're looking to do going forward to continue growing that and make it even better? Where does the future lie? Where are you going to be in a year's time?